And I'd say 90% of those projects are really good projects, much needed. And we're going to have to face, probably not this session, but if I come back in 15, we'd certainly face the structural inadequacy of our bonding capability right now for the needs. Minuscule campuses alone would readily spend, the entire bonding amount. University of Minnesota, the same, and without making those kinds of investments, the education village and other innovations, and without the they call it the HEPRA, the basic maintenance and upgrade and capacity, efficiency of the buildings and the systems, we're going to fall farther and farther behind. So we need to look at some other source, I think, of revenue, and I've got a couple ideas, but in the aftermath of e-pull tabs, I think I'll keep them to myself for the time being.
The bonding bill needs to be approved by 60% of legislators in both houses to pass on to the governor's desk. Dayton said it will take a bipartisan effort to get the bill through the legislature. Among the projects up for consideration is the proposed WSU Education Village, a project Dayton believes is an important one.
You got a great proposal here, improving the innovativeness of our teaching professionals, and I think they do a phenomenal job at the K-12 level or E-12 level, as well as post-secondary education. But as a teacher myself for 2 years, you're in there suddenly and it's like gulp, and so you have a way of understanding, how do kids learn, what are the most effective methods of teaching, and just having building that kind of, how can we do a better job of educating young people for their futures is really key. So I think you're on something really important and really valuable.
Dayton held a press conference following the event during which he offered his thoughts on several other issues, including health care. The governor said the state's MNsure program is comparable to programs offered by other states, but said there is room for improvement.
If you compare our progress here with the other state systems, we're certainly in the mainstream. A couple that are better, but there are a number that are worse. And if you compare us with the federal program, which is where 36 states are operating, we're vastly better. They're not going to be able to cover small businesses for the next year. We're already covering small businesses, and we're hearing from a lot of businesses that this has been a great savings for them. One small business I'm aware of cut their cost in half. So I think overall it's not as good as I'd like to see it. It's going to get better. We're assuring people that they're going to have coverage if they pay their initial premiums by January 1st. And I think it'll just keep getting better.
Dayton also offered his comments on frac sand mining. And while new regulations were passed during the last session, he says more needs to be done.
I believe we should have a moratorium on anything here in southeastern Minnesota. I don't know that it should apply, for example, on the Minnesota River, where they've been mining quite successfully for 40, 50 years. But I think this area is so fragile ecologically, and the karsks and all, and the way of life here, and the small communities, and the bed and breakfast, and the trout fishing, and everything else that it's a mainstay economically, but also why people like to live here, is potentially threatened for what I think are just limited economic opportunities that are only going to benefit relatively few people. But the legislature wouldn't go along with my proposal, and others as well, to have a ban or moratorium entirely. So we've taken the legislation that was passed that gave the increased regulatory authority to the state DNR and the Pollution Control Agency, and we're making the very best we can to provide the maximum protections. But there's certainly more that needs to be done.